On August 29, 2013, a woman named Kiki Muddar dialed 999 from a house on Broomfield Road in Chadwell Heath, East London. She reported that her 33-year-old roommate, Polly Chowdhury, had attempted to take her own life in the bath, and that Polly's daughter, 8-year-old Ayesha Ali, was dead. When paramedics arrived, they found Ayesha in her bedroom, unresponsive and already cold. She was naked except for a pair of pink underwear, and despite efforts, she was pronounced dead at the scene. Near her body, police discovered suicide notes written by Polly. One claimed Ayesha had tried to drown herself, and that Polly, unable to revive her, had suffocated the child with a pillow, supposedly to end her suffering. One note read, "I, Polly Chowdhury, am writing this letter to let everyone know that I have taken my life and Ayesha's life. I am writing this of my own free will. I have become severely depressed and do not want to live my life any longer. Some things cannot be forgiven. Ayesha, my daughter, who gave me the greatest pain. She wished me dead every day, telling me to kill myself, doing things to hurt herself, and then blame me. I tried everything with her, but nothing was enough. She tried to drown herself today. I pulled her out of the water and tried to save her, but I couldn't get her fully better. This was the last straw. I failed. I cannot take any more. For all the grief and pain I have caused and am causing, please forgive me. Pray for my soul. Polly Chowdhury." Polly was rushed to hospital. She survived and was taken into medical care, but within hours of leaving the hospital, she was under arrest for the murder of her own daughter. At first glance, it seemed like a tragic but straightforward case of a mother's mental breakdown turned deadly. But investigators immediately noticed something off. Kiki Muddar, the woman who made the emergency call, showed little interest in Ayesha's fate. Her concern, strangely, was focused solely on Polly's well-being. All the evidence initially pointed to Polly, but as detectives dug deeper, a far more disturbing story began to emerge. A twisted web of psychological manipulation, obsession, and lies. And at the center of it all was Kiki Muddar.
"I'm not joking, I'm going to kill her. Seriously, you will never see me again. I swear to God I'm going to kill her. I will drown her in bath. I will drown that witch."
Polly Chowdhury was born in 1979, raised in the vibrant, multicultural neighbourhood of Hampstead, London, by her Bangladeshi parents. Her early life was not easy. As a teenager, Polly fell pregnant, a situation that caused great tension in her strict household. Under pressure, she terminated the pregnancy. Later, she entered into an arranged marriage, which became abusive. Eventually, Polly made the decision to leave it behind. She was a woman with low self-esteem, often struggling with her self-worth, but she was also deeply spiritual. She believed in ghosts, spirits, and the afterlife. In 1996, at age 17, Polly's life seemed to take a turn for the better. While working as a legal secretary, she met a young man named Ayesha Ali, and the two quickly connected. Their friendship turned into romance, and before long, they were married. Polly and Ayesha built a home together in Chadwell Heath, a suburban area in East London, Essex. Together, they welcomed 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. One of these 2 daughters was little Ayesha Ali, who was born in 2004. Ayesha was everything a parent could hope for. Described as happy, cheeky, intelligent and loving, she brought joy into every room she entered. Teachers, neighbours and friends all spoke of her kindness, her zest for life, and even her early passion for helping others. Despite her age, she was thoughtful, a child wise beyond her years. Her father, Ayesha, adored Polly and loved their children deeply. He was hard-working, intelligent, and committed to building a good life for the family. And for a while, things looked good. Polly had stability, she had love, she had her children. So what on earth could have happened by 2013 that left her daughter dead and Polly under arrest for her murder? As the investigators looked closer at the cause of Ayesha's death, the full horror began to emerge. Ayesha's body showed clear signs of intense, prolonged suffering, over 50 injuries including a bite mark, severe carpet burns, and most critically, a head injury so severe it was determined to be the cause of death. Pathologists concluded that Ayesha had died the day before the 999 call on August 28, 2013. This timeline directly contradicted Polly's account in her suicide notes, where she claimed to have suffocated her daughter after a failed suicide attempt in the bath. But the medical evidence told a different story. She had suffered a traumatic blow to the head and died as a result of it. With the scene fully examined, police turned their attention to the people who had been closest to Ayesha in her final days. That meant looking into Kiki Muddar, the woman who had made the emergency call and who at the time of Ayesha's death had been living in the same house with both Polly and Ayesha. They needed to understand who was Kiki Muddar and how had she come to play such a disturbing role in this family's life. Little was known about Kiki's early years. Those who crossed paths with her described her as odd, reclusive, and at times dishonest. She didn't appear to have had many jobs, and she was known to embellish the truth. At one point, she even claimed to have worked for the London Olympics and told people she had a boyfriend who was killed in the riots. Neither claim was true. But behind the lies, there was something far more dangerous. Kiki was persuasive. She had a dominating presence, a forceful personality, and in 2007, she found someone she could influence completely. That someone was Polly Chowdhury. Kiki lived alone back then. She had few friends, little structure, and not much going on in her life until Polly and her husband Ayesha Ali moved in next door. From that moment on, Kiki became obsessed with Polly. She told Polly she had serious cancer and that her boyfriend had died in the London riots, creating an emotional bond based on sympathy and dependency. She inserted herself into Polly's life more and more, slowly taking up her time, her energy, and eventually her loyalty. By 2011, the friendship had grown intense, too intense. Ayesha began to notice just how much influence Kiki had over his wife. He grew increasingly uncomfortable with the strange dynamic between them. In an act of desperation, Ayesha decided to move his family away, hoping that distance would break the hold Kiki had over his wife. But peace didn't last long. Kiki found them. She invited herself over, claiming to be in pain and needing support for her supposed cancer. What was meant to be a short visit became something far more invasive. Kiki never left. From there, things spiraled. Kiki demanded more of Polly's attention and began asserting control over the household and soon demanded to sleep in her bed. One day, Ayesha returned home, went upstairs to his bedroom to rest, but was greeted by Polly. Polly told him that Kiki would now be sleeping in their marital bed and that he, her husband, could sleep downstairs on the sofa. That moment marked the collapse of the marriage. Ayesha decided to end their relationship, so in February 2013, Polly moved into a new home in Chadwell Heath, taking her two youngest children, including Ayesha, with her, and as always, Kiki came too. With Ayesha finally out of the picture, Kiki had achieved what appeared to be her goal, Polly's full attention. But there were still two obstacles standing in the way of that complete control, Polly's children. And in the months that followed, things in that household would get stranger and stranger. After her split from Ayesha, Polly began looking for love online. Despite her intense, strange bond with Kiki, Polly insisted she was heterosexual and started messaging several men on Facebook. One of those men was Jimmy, someone Kiki had introduced her to. Polly and Jimmy exchanged hundreds of messages and texts. He was affectionate, romantic, and gave her gifts. Polly quickly fell in love, despite never meeting him, and even spoke of marriage. Around the same time, Polly started receiving messages from a second figure, someone named Skyman, who claimed to be her spirit guide. He said he was a Muslim entity who would guide her through life. Skyman gave Polly instructions, told her what to do, and dictated strict rules for her children, including when they should eat, down to the minute. But things got stranger. Because Jimmy and Polly couldn't meet in person, Skyman told Polly that Jimmy's spirit would live inside Kiki's body, and that Kiki was now a physical conduit for Jimmy. Polly believed it. She believed that when she had sex with Kiki, she was having sex with her online boyfriend. Kiki herself claimed to experience physical pain from her cancer that miraculously subsided only when Polly touched her. As time went on, Skyman's messages turned darker, especially towards Ayesha. Texts included, "Your daughter will pay. Your daughter is evil. You never disciplined her today. Your daughter will be destroyed. You have no right to ever like or love your evil daughter." The abuse towards Ayesha escalated both emotionally and physically, encouraged by Skyman and inflicted by Kiki and Polly. But who were Jimmy and Skyman really? And how had they gained so much control over Polly? As investigators traced the messages, they uncovered a disturbing truth. By the time Ayesha died, she had already endured months of abuse at the hands of both her mother, Polly, and her mother's housemate and so-called friend, Kiki. The abuse was systematic, escalating, and brutal, a disturbing mix of physical violence and psychological torment, all under the influence of the online entity Skyman. Skyman told Polly that Ayesha was possessed, evil, and needed punishment for ordinary things, for acting like any normal 8-year-old. Physical beatings became a regular occurrence. Kiki and Polly would hit her with their hands or a wooden spoon. Ayesha was often punished by being made to stand in cold baths, sometimes for bedwetting. She was also forced to clean the bathroom. The situation worsened during the summer holidays of 2013, when Ayesha was home all day. With no school, no teachers, and no one checking in, the abuse went unnoticed. One night in August, Kiki entered Ayesha's room dressed in dark clothes and a Halloween mask, deliberately trying to scare her. A terrified Ayesha screamed for her mother. Polly rushed in, but instead of helping, she looked around and told her daughter there was nothing there. She called her stupid and said she was imagining things, even though Kiki was clearly still in the room. The emotional toll was enormous. One neighbor later told police they heard Ayesha sobbing and crying out during the night. And just a few weeks later, Ayesha Ali was dead. As detectives dug deeper into Ayesha's death, one of the strangest moments came when Kiki herself called the police. She rang in to ask how the investigation was going, something police rarely see from people even remotely connected to a crime. It raised immediate red flags. She was especially curious about one thing: had they found Jimmy yet? She even offered to help the police track him down, claiming he was part of a boxing club in Montford. Officers followed the lead, visiting every gym and club in the area where he might have trained, but their search turned up nothing. There was no Jimmy. Detectives quickly reached a conclusion: Jimmy was a fabrication, and they suspected Kiki was the one behind it. They looked at Jimmy's Facebook profile and traced the photo to its source. The man in the picture was real, but he wasn't Jimmy. He was a man living in India who had no connection to Polly or Kiki whatsoever. When contacted, he confirmed he'd never spoken to either of them and had no idea that his identity was being used. Police then turned to the digital evidence. Through IP address tracing, they confirmed that every message from Jimmy had been sent from Kiki's phone and computer. But Jimmy wasn't the only persona. Kiki had built an entire fake world online, complete with family members, friends, and an emotional backstory, all designed to make her characters more believable. She created Jimmy's sisters, cousins, and other fake profiles to reinforce the illusion, all interacting with Polly to deepen her emotional investment. In reality, it was Kiki behind it all. The scale of deception was staggering. Investigators pulled more than 190,000 lines of digital data from Kiki and Polly's devices. This included over 16,000 pages of Facebook messages, 1,500 audio recordings, and around 40,000 text messages. Kiki had created Jimmy to seduce Polly, knowing Polly identified as heterosexual. She used Jimmy to manufacture a romantic relationship, even convincing Polly that Jimmy's spirit was living inside Kiki's body. So, when Polly was intimate with Kiki, she believed she was actually being intimate with Jimmy, the man she thought she loved. To completely control Polly's thoughts and behaviour, Kiki invented another figure, Skyman, a supposed spiritual guide. Polly, deeply spiritual and vulnerable, believed Skyman was a divine presence in her life. But Skyman, just like Jimmy, was Kiki. If Polly didn't follow these instructions, she was told there would be consequences. Skyman's authority was absolute, and as Kiki's psychological grip on Polly tightened, the physical abuse against Ayesha escalated. Investigators discovered that Kiki kept detailed logs of Ayesha's supposed bad behaviour. The infractions were small, often absurd, like putting shoes in the wrong place, sighing, or huffing. Among the evidence was something far more heartbreaking, Ayesha's own journals. In them, she expressed a desperate desire to change, hoping that if she could just be better, her mother might love her again. She wrote about trying to be good, about wanting to stop being bad, not understanding that she wasn't the problem, she was the victim. She wrote, "Nothing has changed at all, and I'm not just letting myself down, but I am letting my family and Kiki down as well. It's the weekend today, and most of my friends are probably having a laugh, watching telly, whereas I am just sitting here making notes. I'm so bored. As you can see, I have written a lot, but I am just writing to myself. I have learnt while I am sitting here that I have to change. I will change no matter what. If I be rude, then nobody will like me. Being thought bad, naughty and mean, it's getting to be very upsetting. I don't like hurting other people's feelings. I don't know how I make myself do these things. I hate getting punishments, so I'm gonna make sure I change." This little girl, just 8 years old, had been gaslit and manipulated until she believed she was at fault for the horror around her. And all of it, the lies, the manipulation, the abuse, led back to one person, Kiki. The extent of Kiki's hatred towards Ayesha was further revealed in a recorded phone conversation with a friend made just a month before Ayesha's death. In this call, Kiki chillingly described Ayesha as a witch and explicitly threatened to drown her in the bath, repeating this threat an astonishing 20 times.
Kill Polly's daughter. I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking, I'm gonna kill her. Seriously, you will never see me again. I'm gonna kill her. I swear to God, I'm gonna kill her. I will drown her in bath. I will drown that witch.
With thousands of text messages, audio recordings, Facebook data, and hours of CCTV footage, police began to piece together what they believed happened in the final 24 hours of Ayesha's life. It was confirmed that both Polly and Kiki were inside the flat on August 28, 2013, the day Ayesha died. But even with all the digital evidence, investigators couldn't determine who had delivered the fatal blow. Neither woman confessed, and both refused to take responsibility. Investigators believed that Ayesha was subjected to a cold bath that day after having wet herself. During or after the bath, she was physically assaulted. The pathologist confirmed Ayesha died as a result of a traumatic head injury, likely caused by a flexible, blunt object. CCTV footage showed Kiki leaving the flat around 7 p.m. that evening with Polly's other child, heading to her parents' home. Polly stayed in the flat, alone with Ayesha's body, and did nothing. That same day, Kiki was also caught on CCTV buying a replacement shower hose, then returning to the flat. Forensic analysis later concluded that the injuries Ayesha suffered could have been caused by a shower hose. The original was missing, leading investigators to believe it had either broken during the assault or was deliberately removed and replaced to hide evidence. By the time emergency services were called on the afternoon of August 29th, Ayesha had already been dead for hours. With Polly already in custody, on October 1st, 2013, police then also arrested and charged Kiki with her murder. Detective Sergeant Andy Nimmo, who led the case, said the investigation took months of detailed work, including digital forensics and interviews. Police had to sift through an extensive network of fake online identities, hundreds of fabricated messages, and misleading statements from both women. In the end, Nimmo said the evidence showed a sustained campaign of psychological and physical abuse. This painstaking process ultimately revealed a picture of enormous hatred directed towards Ayesha by both Kiki and her own mother. January 2015, nearly 2 years after Ayesha's death, Polly Chowdhury and Kiki Muddar stood trial at the Old Bailey. It was the first time the two women had seen each other since their arrests. Both pleaded not guilty to all charges, and the jury was given 2 options: murder or manslaughter. The women insisted they were innocent and continued to claim that Jimmy and Skyman were real people. The prosecution focused on proving that Ayesha's death was not a tragic accident, but the result of deliberate violence. With support from digital evidence, phone data and CCTV footage, they demonstrated that both women were present in the flat when Ayesha died. However, they could not determine which of the two had physically delivered the fatal blow. Throughout the trial, their relationship was described as bizarre, with Kiki exerting profound psychological control over Polly. Evidence showed that the fake personas Kiki created, including Jimmy and Skyman, were used to seduce Polly, manipulate her, and ultimately turn her against her own daughter. The fantasy world Kiki created through Facebook and text messages allowed her to exploit Polly's emotional vulnerabilities, isolate her from her ex-husband Afsar, and paint Ayesha as an obstacle that needed to be removed. As the trial progressed, the two women began to turn on each other. Polly took the stand, claiming that Kiki had administered a cold bath to Ayesha as punishment for bedwetting, and that she had seen her with her foot on Ayesha's chest. According to Polly, she had pushed Kiki away, but then returned to her computer to continue looking for a job, leaving her daughter behind. Kiki declined to give evidence, maintaining that she had been at her parents' house at the time of Ayesha's death. She denied all responsibility, choosing instead to blame Polly. In court, Kiki was repeatedly described as controlling, manipulative, and emotionally exploitative. Judge Christopher Moss QC called her a wicked woman who had inserted herself into Polly's life and torn the family apart. A psychological assessment diagnosed Kiki with borderline narcissistic personality disorder, a condition that helped explain her extreme need for control and domination over others. The court also heard how Polly, under Kiki's influence, had deliberately kept Afsar away from Ayesha, even using court orders to prevent him from seeing his daughter while the abuse was ongoing. Eventually, overwhelmed by the evidence against her, Kiki issued a statement through her lawyer, finally admitting that Jimmy had never existed and that she had never had cancer, though she now claimed Polly had encouraged her to lie about the illness. Polly, sitting in the courtroom, reportedly broke down in tears and fled, and the judge did not order her to be stopped. It appeared to be the first time she truly understood the full extent of what she had allowed to happen to her daughter. The jury deliberated for 31 hours. It was a tense wait. In the end, although the prosecution had proven clear intent and cruelty, they had not been able to confirm who inflicted the final blow. Both women were found guilty of manslaughter. In his sentencing, Judge Moss said it was clear Ayesha had died as a result of an assault, likely while being punished in the bath. He concluded that Kiki bore the lion's share of responsibility, both for creating the violent dynamic in the home and for orchestrating the manipulation that ultimately led to Ayesha's death. Despite the conviction being for manslaughter, the sentences were unusually severe due to the level of abuse and cruelty involved. In the end, Polly Chowdhury was sentenced to 13 years in prison. Kiki Muddar, who the court recognized as the primary manipulator and possibly the one who ordered or inflicted the fatal injury, received 18 years. Outside court, Ayesha's father, Ayesha Ali, spoke through his lawyer. He had shown remarkable courage, attending every single day of the trial, holding back grief no parent should ever have to bear. He said,
"There are lots of unanswered questions from professionals, which I will address in due course. Over the last few weeks, I sat in the courtroom as the truth unfolded. It wasn't the truth about my princess Ayesha. It was the truth about what they both did to my little girl. How they tortured her and took away her life. Ayesha was an amazing little girl, loving, caring, intelligent and always smiling. She was helpful and considerate to everyone she met. She was a gift of love. I knew that the very moment when she came into my world, nothing will bring Ayesha back. All I have right now is happy memories of the past, the joyful moments we have had together. She filled my world with beauty, and I'm going to hold on to that as long as I live. Ayesha was my sunshine, my closest friend. Right now, I want to move on with my life and be there for my children. I request everyone to respect our privacy and leave us in peace. Thank you.
Afsar described his time in court as a way to relive Ayesha's life, to feel the pain his daughter had endured. His presence wasn't about revenge, it was about honouring the little girl he loved and lost. And he made one thing clear: he would never forgive Polly or Kiki for what they did. And who could blame him? The trial may have ended in 2015, but the pain never did. After the guilty verdicts, it seemed some measure of justice had finally been handed down. But just 3 months later, both women appealed. In November 2015, the Court of Appeal reduced both sentences. The judges ruled that Kiki's 18-year sentence was manifestly excessive and lowered it to 15 years. Polly's sentence was also cut from 13 to just 10 years. And that's where this case becomes even more difficult to stomach, because if my maths is correct, here in 2025, Polly, a mother who stood by and let her child be abused, manipulated, and ultimately killed, may now be a free woman. And Kiki, who built a world of lies to isolate and destroy an innocent child, is nearing the end of her sentence. The truth is, Ayesha was failed at every turn, most devastatingly, by her own mother. Polly did not protect her. She listened to voices in her phone rather than the voice of her child. She chose delusion over motherhood, and when Ayesha begged not to be bad, she turned away. As for Kiki, she didn't just manipulate, she orchestrated. She poisoned Polly's mind against her own daughter. She created fake characters to justify abuse, controlled every detail of Polly's life, and even went as far as blaming Ayesha, the victim, for worsening her fictional cancer. Ayesha deserved love, she deserved safety, she deserved to grow up. Instead, she was caught in the crossfire of lies, obsession, and cruelty. And now, the people who took everything from her may walk free, but Ayesha Ali will never get the chance to. As always, my heart goes out to all those impacted by this awful and heinous crime, especially to her siblings and to her father Afsar. And of course, rest in peace, Ayesha Ali.
I think as a father, I'll always think that there's always something that I could have done. No father would want to bury the child. You kind of want your children to be there, live longer than you do, and for them to organise the funerals. But when I laid in her grave, I didn't want to come out. Just wanted to be there with her. But my hands were tied.